The Great Pyramid of Giza, an ancient Egyptian pyramid, is the largest of the three pyramids of Giza. It is located on a rocky plateau on the west bank of the Nile River in northern Egypt. It was built by Khufu, also known as Cheops, the second king of Egypt's 4th dynasty, around 2543 to 2436 BCE. The pyramid was completed in the early 25th century BCE. Description: The Great Pyramid is one of the largest buildings ever constructed. It originally stood about 482 feet, or 147 meters, tall. However, erosion and the removal of most of the polished limestone casing stones, which made the structure smooth and caused it to gleam in the sunlight, have lowered the pyramid's height to 449 feet, or 137 meters. The base and three sides each measure 755 feet, or 230 meters in length. The pyramid's sides rise at an angle of 51.87 degrees and are accurately oriented to the 4 cardinal points of the compass. The Great Pyramid's core is made of yellowish limestone blocks, and the inner passages are of finer light-coloured limestone. The interior burial chamber is built of huge blocks of granite. Approximately 2.3 million blocks of stone were cut, transported and assembled to create the 5.75 million ton structure, which is a masterpiece of technical skill and engineering ability. The internal walls, as well as those few outer casing stones that still remain in place, show finer joints than any other masonry constructed in ancient Egypt. The entrance to the Great Pyramid is on the north side, about 59 feet above ground level. While immense, the pyramid has very little open space inside. A sloping corridor descends from the entrance through the pyramid's interior masonry, penetrates the rocky soil on which the structure rests, and ends in an unfinished underground chamber. From the descending corridor branches an ascending passageway that leads to a room known as the Queen's Chamber and to a great slanting passageway known as the Grand Gallery. That tall, corbelled passageway is 151 feet long. At the upper end of the Grand Gallery, a long and narrow passage gives access to the burial room proper, usually termed the King's Chamber. This room is entirely lined and roofed with granite. From the chamber, 2 narrow shafts run obliquely through the masonry to the exterior of the pyramid. It is not known whether they were designed for a religious purpose or if they were meant for ventilation. Above the King's Chamber are 5 compartments separated by massive horizontal granite slabs. The likely purpose of these slabs was to shield the ceiling of the burial chamber by diverting the immense thrust exerted by the overlying masses of masonry. Questions persist over how the pyramid was built. The most plausible theory is that the Egyptians employed a sloping and encircling embankment of brick, earth, and sand, which was increased in height and in length as the pyramid rose. Stone blocks were hauled up the ramp by means of sledges, rollers, and levers. According to the ancient Greek historian Herodotus, the Great Pyramid took 20 years to construct and required the labour of 100,000 men. This figure is believable given the assumption that these men, who were agricultural labourers, worked on the pyramid only or primarily, while there was little work to be done in the fields, i.e., when the Nile River was in flood. By the late 20th century, however, archaeologists found evidence that a more limited workforce may have occupied the site on a permanent rather than a seasonal basis. It was suggested that as few as 20,000 workers, with accompanying support personnel, bakers, physicians, priests, etc., would have been adequate for the task. Formal excavations of the Great Pyramid of Giza began in the 19th century. One of the first notable discoveries occurred in the 1830s, when a British Egyptologist found labourers' graffiti indicating that the pyramid belonged to Khufu. Later, excavations uncovered 2 boats buried near the Great Pyramid. The king's remains, however, have never been found. Some believe his body was stolen by looters, who also removed any treasures. Since the early 21st century, 3-dimensional scanners and other non-invasive technologies have been used to explore the pyramid, and in 2023, it was announced that a hidden corridor had been discovered.